We started excavating the place, and to the surprise of all of us, we were not finding anything. And ballast
cannons,
and
exactly.
cannons, yes.
A shark making it into the Seine because of climate change and all the things.
Yeah, I tried. That is a major find in any shipwreck, and they are normally in shipwrecks that haven't been rescued or salvaged. Hey dudes, this is bad. This is bad, it's coming. We sat together and made photos with the tornado. Yeah, no, not that one. Hello everyone, and welcome to Underwater Adventures with Alex Mirabal. Today we will talk about the Portuguese Astrolabes found in Cuban waters. So let's dive into it. The Colorado's Archipelago, or Colorado's Reef, I have mentioned it in other videos, is a super large coral formation in the western end of Cuba, in the north of the province of Pinal del Rio, which was during many centuries like a big trap for navigators coming from America to Spain, mainly for the Spanish fleets, because it's a very large coral reef which is very shallow and in some portions is quite far from land, meaning that you cannot see land from the reef, and you could think that you are in the middle of the ocean and that you have enough depth under you, and you have in front a place which have less than 1 meter deep. So it was a very complicated place to navigate, and therefore there are plenty of shipwrecks in that area. That was the reason why we started in the company I was working in Cuba, in Carizub. We started a systematic survey of that reef. As I mentioned in another video, is more than 200 kilometers long. Obviously, this survey, this exploration took
Forever. Yeah.
years. Because it was simple. We jump in the water in a certain point that we mark with the GPS, and then we start swimming down the reef. In a day, you could swim 5-6 miles, checking on the reef to see if plenty of divers. It's not like one diver, but we snorkel, we go swimming 6 or 7 divers. Every time that we found something, we put a buoy, then we mark with the GPS, we register that find. And at the end of the working day, wherever you finish, you also mark with the buoy and mark that point to start tomorrow from there. So let's put it like 5 miles a day for 200 miles. It takes a lot of time. So we were exploring this place, and obviously we came across a lot of wrecks which we couldn't match with certain information from the archive. We have a lot of information of this ship have been lost in that area, but then when you find another wreck and you go back to the archives, there were many of them which were difficult or impossible to match with the report of a lost ship, meaning that it's a wreck that either nobody survived, like most probably the case that I will tell you today, or there are not clear records of the loss regarding the location. So, you know, in the western side of Cuba could mean anything. It's not very useful to match a wreck with an historical information from the archives. We were exploring the Colorado's Reef in 1994. We were exploring the reef there is a part of the reef that is really far from land. It's called Las Calabazas, look like the pumpkins. And there was lighthouse, and I say it was because it doesn't exist anymore. It was broken by the weather quite some years ago. And that lighthouse, the name was Francisco Padre, so Father Francis. And we were exploring that area and we discovered this wreck. Only being there, you could imagine the tragedy of stranding a boat, either, I don't know if it was in the night or during the day or in whatever situation, stranding a boat and losing your boat in that place because you are in the middle of the sea. You don't see Cuba from there. I mean,
effectively you are in the middle of the ocean, stranded. So I imagine even more over in those days, the hope for any help out the window. Who's going to find you there?
Yeah, unless you're
With a
coming
fleet. Yeah,
together with the fleet and the other ships see that you're stranded and they rescue, the expecting help from there, it's out of the question. Because Fur is still today, it's in a very far away place. Even today that we are in the 21st century, it's a very difficult place to access, to go there. Nobody goes there. Why would you go there? Because it's not deep enough for normal navigation and it's not shallow enough for you to stand in a little island or a key. So it is a horrible place, and for us it was a very high potential area to find shipwrecks just because of that. So we found this wreck. The first thing we saw, as is most common in Cuban waters or in the Caribbean, was this heap of ballast stones that I have explained the importance that it has in recognizing, in finding out that you have actually come across a wreck. And it has 6 iron cannons, quite slim and long, that at the very first view it looked quite old. So obviously very interesting for us. We started searching in the area. Since the finding of the wreck, everyone got the impression this is a ship that it shouldn't have been rescued because of the location I'm mentioning. And that is obviously always very attractive because you have much higher potential of finding a lot of artifacts. For the study of shipwrecks and underwater archaeology, that is like a prize. So we started checking on the cannons and checking for marks, and we saw in one of the cannons, in the trunnion of one of the cannons, there was an inscribed date and was 1587. Okay, 1587 is whatever underwater archaeology for us, whatever started with 15 is great. It gets
priority. It gets preferential treatment.
Okay, we are in the 16th century. Yeah, for us that was really attractive. The older, as I have said in other videos, the older the wreck, the more interesting it is for an archaeologist. Obvious reasons. Being a 16th century and in that place, we thought, okay, this will be a great wreck to work. So we gave it priority. We started with a deeper survey of the site, and we decided to excavate certain areas that look more promising to find artifacts. This wreck, exactly because of the location it has, it was also the wreck that I have mentioned in other episodes, the story of the 2 sharks, because it's one of the few times that we have had any issue with sharks during our work. And it was, being so isolated and so far from land, wildlife there is very abundant, and it is pretty much how it should be everywhere if we wouldn't mess with that so much.
That's the whole point. Big coral reefs are huge sources of food and biodiversity. So So
we arrived in that place, and when we were starting our survey of the area, we found these 2 bull sharks, which are, by the way, species which it has been quite dangerous for men. There are many of the, the big bandit in the sharks is the great white, but studies of the reports on attacks on humans have demonstrated that many of the attacks that have been blamed to the great white have actually being done by bull sharks. So bull sharks are really dangerous. They are big, they are strong, and they have this capacity of living anywhere in very shallow waters, even in fresh water or quite fresh water in lakes and rivers. These guys are
adaptability. Everywhere. I'm so sorry. There is a movie out right now that I wish I remember the name. I'll put it in the editing. That is a French movie about a shark making it into the Seine because of climate change and all the things they started they started adapting. So it's so funny that you mentioned that.
I tried to watch
it the
other day. I tried. Don't
Stephen King said that it was a great movie. That's why people are trying to watch it. No on the French shark.
Yeah, no, not that one. So we arrived there, and these 2 bull sharks that obviously they have made this reef their territory. They live there, and suddenly we arrive, a lot of people making noises and trying to excavate the wreck and start to put in ropes and lines on the seabed, hammering sticks on the seabed. Yeah, they didn't like that, and they got very nervous. We didn't have any serious issue with the sharks, but actually they stopped us from working like 2 days. We had to, and this is unusual, that's what I'm mentioning it, because normally, you could see a shark or two and they come and they check you out and they go. But these ones, they were very insisting in that we should be the ones to go, not them. And during 2 days, there was a little bit of this pulse in the reef till they just move away. Maybe they moved to another reef nearby and they make their house there. So we were working there and we started excavating the place, and to the surprise of all of us, we were not finding anything. I mean, aside of little pieces of it was obviously a wreck, so we had the normal lead sheeting from the hull of the ship. We had few lead shot from stock weapons.
And ballast, so there was a wreck, yes or yes.
And ballast and the cannons, yes. And it has a couple of anchors, if I'm not mistaken. But we didn't find this marvelous variety of artifacts that we were expecting. And that's why I also have to mention this kind of wrecks. And you will see why this work we do is so interesting, because you never know what you will. This one, it has all the elements that will make you think, okay, this will be a wreck with a lot of artifacts, it will be super interesting. And it didn't happen. We were working there for months and we were not finding anything. So when this happened in an excavation, mainly when it's an excavation in a coral, which is hard rock, you are using heavy machinery, well, heavy in a way because hammers and chisels, and sometimes the pneumatic hammer, which is also very hard to operate under the water, is quite uncomfortable. So when you are doing that every day and you are taking all this rubble out of the side in boxes, in crates, it is tiring physically. But if on top of it you are not finding anything, so you don't have any comfort at the end of the day that say, okay, we did a lot of hard work, but look how beautiful artifacts we have found. No. And this really wears
it gets frustrating very quickly, of course. And on top of it, when you all guys already went with the high expectation, we're in a perfect kind of situation to find many artifacts, and then you don't. That probably is quite frustrating and tiring.
Yeah, so having this mood in the team, we decide, okay, let's leave a small group still excavating, and let's make a wider survey of the reef to see if by any chance there is another part of the wreck that ended up somewhere. So that we did. We started swimming around and we found a place which was 360 meters away from the ballast pile, which was our fixed point. 360 meters away to the, I think it was to the northeast. Yeah, it was to the northeast. And we found there a very small anchor, some few fragments of olive jars, which are a very common find in Iberian shipwrecks of the 16th, 17th, 18th century.
Probably in shipwrecks of today as well.
Maybe. Well, the olive jars, this one's made of clay. Maybe not that common, but yeah. They use it to transport. We call them olive jars, but they didn't only transported olive oil on them or pickles, because they also transported salted fish, wine, vinegar,
anything they could fit
water
in the jar.
Yeah, well, maybe they started transporting wine and then left it that by a natural process. So this is a very common find, but in the area of the ballast stones and the cannons, we didn't find fragments of these olive jars. So we were a little bit puzzled. Why in this little, because on top of it, this new area we found with the small anchor and these pieces of pottery, it was quite small in terms of area. It was quite small. It was not like another shipwreck. It was something small with few visible elements. But in any case, everyone got very happy. We started passing our metal detectors there, and we have the most unexpected surprise finding two very well conserved astrolabes that is a major find in any shipwreck, and they are normally in shipwrecks that haven't been rescued or salvaged, because astrolabes are such an important navigation instrument. They were like the first things that the salvors will retrieve, because even if you are in the same ship and you're rescuing the important stuff, you will rescue the astrolabe, because they will help you finding your way back either home or to another place, because they help you in the navigation. So this is a very strange find in a wreck that you don't find anything else. And these two astrolabes, they were in very good condition, I mean conservation conditions. You could read almost every inscription in the astrolabe still under the water, you know, the scales and how the scale is divided. One of them even had the name of the maestro who built it, who made it, that it was Sebastião de Goes. That struck us as a little bit odd because Sebastião de Goes, I mean, the Goes family was family of astrolabe makers in Portugal, that it was quite well known. They made very high quality instruments, and they, with that reputation, they sold obviously astrolabes to the Portuguese fleet and to the Spaniards. And let's just have in mind that the date in the canon is 1587. So we are already in the time of what they call the double crown, when Portugal and Spain were together between 1580 and 1640. During those years, they were like the two crowns, and the products and the technology transfer between the two countries quite easily. So even knowing that, it was a little bit surprising for us, because we have found, by that moment, we have found plenty of Spanish shipwrecks in Cuba. It is very rare to find a Portuguese shipwreck, and they always have had astrolabes, but made in Spain. So there was Spanish production. And these were the first two ones that we found that they were Portuguese. I wanted to mention this because that's what I love my job, because it's very interesting how a wreck that apparently had no substance in it, the finding of two Portuguese astrolabes changed everything in terms of the research. We started investigating the Goes family, because Sebastião de Goes was the one who signed the astrolabe, and we found out that the Goes family actually worked between the years 1587 and 1632, meaning that the founder of the Goes business, it was Francisco de Goes, and Francisco de Goes was the one who founded in 1587, and then after he got too old, he was replaced by his son Agostinho de Raposo. So where is Sebastião de Goes? And this is something that we all started asking ourselves, who is Sebastião de Goes? I mean, if the founding father of the family making astrolabe, it was Francisco de Goes, and then it came this Raposo. So
who the hell
where is Sebastião de Goes? And in a wreck that could be as early as 1588 or 1589, and the family started that business in 1587, so it was right in the beginning.
So there was no way that it could be like a son, because it would be too young. I understand why, or at least from a completely unknowledgeable brain, I would also be like, then who is this person? The brother, a cousin? Like, what is happening here? Yeah.
One thing is for sure, whoever was Sebastião
got an astrolabe.
No, he made a beautiful astrolabe, but got no credit for it. Because when you look in the papers in the Portuguese archives, they will talk about the Goes family, and it will start from Francisco. And then Sebastián was nowhere to be seen. So, well, these are the interesting things of the research on my job, which I like so much, because it always leaves you with this question that hasn't been answered, and maybe tomorrow I'm researching another shipwreck or another story, and I come across papers who will finally show me who was Sebastião de Goes and why he was erased from the history.
Potentially he was so unimportant that he had, or he did something so infamous that they were like, yeah, at the best you get a bit of an astrolabe if somebody remembers, otherwise out.
I allow you to sign this astrolabe and go away. Working in that wreck was also a very challenging thing. We couldn't stay with our ship nearby the wreck because the area is very, very dangerous. So we move every evening. There is a lighthouse, or also the remains of another lighthouse, which is called La Tabla. in English would be like the plank. And there is this little lighthouse, it's all broken, but by the side of the lighthouse, it has a very good anchorage. So we moved our ship in the evening there. It was about 2 hours away from the wreck. So we anchored there for the night because you are a little bit protected. You are a little bit sheltered from the weather in the night. So the captain and everyone could sleep a little bit safer. And in being there, I'm bringing this story because as you are in the middle of nowhere, when you have, in the sea mainly, when you have these electric storms, you know, with a lot of lightning and stuff, the only thing sticking out of the sea is your ship with your antennas and stuff. One afternoon we got the big lightning coming through the GPS antenna and it blew up all our navigation.
It fried the entire software, I'm sure.
It put the captain in shock and, well, okay, the ship didn't got fire because we didn't extinguishers. We stopped it. We had to go back to Havana. We have to refit the ship properly, and like 2 months later we came back to continue with the excavation of the wreck, and we were again there in La Tabla anchorage, and we were chatting. This is 6 in the afternoon or 5:30 in the afternoon after the work, and we were chatting in the ship, and this captain, the same captain, he came down to the mess room and say, "Hey guys, tornado is coming." You see tornadoes quite frequently in the sea when you are working in these places because it's too hot, the water is too hot, and the conditions apparently are very favorable for tornadoes to form. And you normally see them, but normally are far away and they have absolutely no business with you and you don't really have to worry. We are down there chatting and the captain comes. The captain by now has a very high reputation of being scared for everything. After that lightning, he was scared of everything. And he came and said, "Hey guys, it's a tornado out there." And it's like saying, "Yeah, there are some waves." Yeah, sure, there's a tornado. What's the point? "Well, we should check it out. Be on the look because there's a tornado down there." We kept on our chat and talking. He come down again from the bridge. He comes down to the mess room again and said, "Hey guys, the tornado is getting close." And we are like, "Yeah, man, please leave us alone. We are just..."
What do you want us to do? The tornado is the tornado. Like what?
And then one of the guys, Juan, our chief diver and a very experienced person, I have talked about Juan in other episodes. Juan said, "Let me go out there and check it out."
To keep him peace.
To relax the captain. So he went out there and came back with the eyes like this and said, "Hey dudes, this is bad. This is bad. It's coming. So we went all out there. We went to the bow of the ship where you could see the tornado coming. We even made photos of that. I mean, we sat together and made photos with the tornado. And man, that became... Tornadoes are this unpredictable because they are moved by the temperature of the ground or the water or the air. So they move quite erratically. But that thing was coming straight to us.
There was no erraticness, no question about it. It had a course.
And we didn't know what to do because, okay, we took the anchor out, so we lift anchor, so we stay drifting with our ship, ready to move the ship away from the trajectory if necessary. But our ship, and like most of the ships, they are quite slow. You are moving 12 knots, and it takes probably 20 minutes to get to the 12 knots. It's slowly. A ship gains speed slow. So we were just drifting and waiting for that thing. And thankfully for us, inside from between us and the tornado, there was a big reef. And that tornado was coming and was growing and growing and growing. And suddenly when it hit the reef is under the water. It's still probably like half a meter under the water, but it's very, very shallow. When the tornado hit the reef, you could hear the noise in the ship. We were probably about 500 meters away or more. And you could hear this noise like a train. When a train passed nearby you, this very loud noise, and the breaking of the coral, you could hear it. It was like this scratching noise, very, very scary, actually, because you see that scene is doing that in a coral reef 500 meters from us, and we are.
That's coming.
hearing
If it comes to us, no,
That's
totally.
really bad.
I would because the entire time that you're explaining it, I'm envisioning like a very thin tornado that can be created in the middle of the ocean from changes in temperature and whatever. What
No,
you're
that
describing,
was big.
like obviously it's inexperience. I literally wouldn't know what to do. Is it safer to just jump in the water and let it blaze through the ship? Is it, you know?
You don't abandon ship. Your safest place.
There you
is
go.
the ship, whatever it happens. Maybe you can go inside the hold.
That's
and
always
the
gonna be
engine room
safer.
Or something. There will be things to do, but don't worry. We didn't know what to do either. We were trying to figure out. But this same moment when the tornado hit the reef and started this horrible sound, it was also the beginning of the end. The tornado started like breaking apart, and then it came on us a very heavy rain of salt water, of seawater. It came just on us. We spent like 2 hours later cleaning the ship because we got salt water where you never get salt water. I mean, in the roof, in the radar, in every place. So next day in the morning, we, curious people as we are, we said, let's go to the reef and see.
Yeah.
We went swimming to the reef, and you could see a highway where the guy crossed the reef from south to north. You could see it very clearly marked. It just erased it. It was
so
no reef
scary.
anymore. So imagine that scene get to your boat. Thankfully it didn't, but so I wanted to tell you this story because these are things that happen during the excavation of a wreck site because you are in a remote place, and okay, they are not part of the job, but they happen and you will have to deal with them. And of course, after that experience, we try to contact people from the meteorology department and from different institutions that knew more than us about that to help us figuring out the protocol if that would happen again. So we know what to do. So it didn't happen again, but at least we knew what to do, and you have to move the ship this way, and they normally travel this angle. Well, okay, there are some theories about it that you could use in your favor.
Again, there are many other things of living and working in a ship that obviously you learn by doing it and experiencing it. But I would have freaked out. Like, I don't know that the average person really understands what it is to be in the middle of water and seeing something come to you and there is no refuge but the boat. And as you just saw, my panic made me think, okay, maybe outside of the boat would have been, no, clearly that's the worst thing that you could probably do. And it's crazy. It's an exciting job, but geez, it's scary. And as your daughter, sometimes those realities I don't think about. And I'm just like, dude, you could have been taken, my dad could have been taken by a tornado. Like, that's crazy to me.
I could be still
That's crazy.
Fine. Yeah, well, it didn't happen. We came back to the wreck. We continued the excavation, and we continued the excavation in this place where the two astrolabes were found, and this little, we found there almost a complete sword and other little artifacts like apothecary weights. They are like little bowls of copper with a very exact weight that they used to measure the components of the medicine that they were making or creating. So this was a very interesting find. We found weapons, stock weapons and a sword and these fragments of olive jars. And then we're trying to figure out, because the most interesting part of all this is that this place where the astrolabes were found and all these little objects and the small anchor and the place of the ballast stones and the 6 cannons, and between the two places, like 360 meters away, there was nothing of the wreck. There was no trace of the ship. Not one nail or one piece of lead sheeting from the hull. Nothing.
Teletransporting.
So it was like if magically a part of the ship would have ended up in that place. And we were trying to find an answer for that, because this is what we do. We try to elaborate the theory and we try to come up with a feasible answer. And I don't remember who it was, but someone in one of these chats in the evening, he said, it looks to me like a safety boat, like an auxiliary boat that was leaving the wreckage with, it has a small anchor, it has the navigation instruments, it have olive jars for liquids, for water or whatever. It had weapons that they will need, and maybe they were trying to leave the wreckage towards wherever they thought land was, and they sank as well. And okay, we don't know that, but it sounds feasible. It sounds that it could have been what happened, and why this little universe of artifacts is just isolated in one place, and with such an interesting variety of artifacts. That they have taken navigation instrument makes sense, take weapons with them makes sense. The theory of the little boat taking the castaways away from the shipwreck and then sinking over there, well, it was as good as any other theory, but in this case it ticks all the marks. It makes complete sense that they would have taken navigational instrument, that they would have taken with them weapons, that there is a small anchor belonging to a small boat, not a large anchor like the ship. Well, I don't know if that is the truth, but that is the better we could figure out from the elements that you find in the ground, that you find in the seabed. So I wanted to tell you this story of the Francisco Padre wreck, because even today we don't know the name of the ship, so we call it Francisco Padre because of the lighthouse that was nearby. The story of this Francisco Padre wreck is interesting, but let's say in the inverse way of other episodes I have made. This is a ship that had all the possibilities of having a big amount of artifacts, even treasure. It could have had everything because it was obviously not rescued in the moment of the accident, and then you end up finding absolutely nothing. But just one find, the find of the two astrolabes, opens a complete line of investigation and research. Portuguese astrolabe in what could be in a Spanish ship, the date, the time of the two crowns. So it makes it still a shipwreck that doesn't have anything inside already. It makes it very interesting and very valuable from the research point of view, which at the end is what will remain, the gain knowledge that you get from this activity. So thank you very much for watching the video. If you like it, please give it a like, share it with your friends and with whoever you believe it will find it interesting. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done it, and let's keep on diving.